The galaxy had long been a tapestry of conflicts, treaties, and fragile truces. Among the many star systems, the Arvian cluster was one of the most volatile, a place where ancient grudges between species festered beneath the guise of diplomacy. Yet, even here, the spark of humanity had a way of shining through the darkest moments. Ethan was a soldier of the United Terran Alliance. Stationed on the remote outpost of Virel 9, the outpost's purpose was simple: monitor the border between human-controlled space and the territory of the alien race known as the Lasari. The Lasari were humanoid in appearance, but taller, with iridescent skin and eyes that glowed faintly in low light. They had long, slender fingers and an innate grace that made their movements hypnotically precise. Humans and Lasari had fought several wars in the past century, each leaving scars on both civilizations. For most soldiers, Lasari were faceless enemies, symbols of an ongoing threat. But for Ethan, fate was about to challenge that perception. It began with a routine patrol near the northern perimeter of Virel 9. Ethan's squad had received reports of unusual Lasari activity, and he was tasked with reconnaissance. The terrain was harsh rocky plains, interspersed with deep canyons and a thin atmosphere that forced all patrols to wear environmental suits. As Ethan moved cautiously, scanning the horizon with his visor's sensors, he heard a soft, almost human-like cry. He followed the sound to a collapsed canyon wall, where a small Lasari child was trapped beneath debris. The child's skin shimmered faintly with fear, and its luminous eyes widened at the sight of him. Ethan hesitated only for a moment. He was trained to assess threats first, but the helplessness in the child's gaze overrode caution. Carefully, he pried away the heavy stones, using every ounce of strength he had. The child whimpered, but did not resist, as if sensing his intentions. The extraction did not go unnoticed. A Lasari patrol arrived shortly after, weapons raised, ready to execute what they believed was an intruder. Ethan shielded the child with his body, his own weapon ready, but aimed downward, signaling no hostility. The Lasari hesitated, scanning his stance and the fear in the child's eyes. For a tense moment, time seemed to stretch, the canyon holding its breath. Then, as if bound by instinct, the child reached out and clutched Ethan's arm. The Lasari lowered their weapons and retreated, leaving him alone with the child. Days turned into weeks as Ethan hid the child in the outpost's supply tunnels. He named the child Lyra, after the star cluster visible from the canyon where he found her. Lyra was curious and surprisingly intelligent, learning the basics of human language quickly and showing a natural aptitude for understanding machinery and technology. Ethan found himself talking to her more than anyone else, teaching her not just how to survive, but also the nuances of empathy, courage, and trust. The act of saving Lyra did not go unnoticed by the Lasari hierarchy. Their queen, a towering figure of regal authority named Alara, dispatched envoys to locate her child. Unlike most Lasari, Alara was not quick to anger, but was meticulous and unyielding in her decisions. She watched from afar, analyzing Ethan's every move, and noted how he protected, nurtured, and educated Lyra without expecting anything in return. When Alara finally arrived at Virel 9, her presence alone silenced the outpost. The humans and their Lasari guides stepped back, sensing the weight of authority that radiated from her. Ethan stood firm, Lyra at his side, unsure if negotiation or confrontation would follow. Alara observed them quietly, before speaking in a melodic voice that seemed to resonate through the walls. "You have done what no Lasari could do," she said, her eyes meeting Ethan's. "You have protected my child without question, without concern for your own life. You have shown what we call honor. You have shown what it means to be human." Ethan listened, cautious yet resolute. He had not expected recognition or gratitude. His actions had been instinctive, driven by empathy rather than politics or strategy. Ilara continued, "Lyra cannot remain with you forever, but she will not forget you. And I cannot let your sacrifice go unacknowledged. You are no longer merely a soldier of the Terran Alliance. You are part of my family, as I recognize those who act with pure intent as kin." Her declaration shocked everyone. In Lysari culture, claiming someone as family was an unbreakable bond, one that transcended species and loyalty. Ethan felt a surge of confusion and awe. He had acted out of compassion, yet the consequence was being drawn into a connection far greater than himself. The days that followed were filled with ceremonies and formal recognition. Ethan was granted access to Lysari archives, their knowledge of science and history unlike anything humans had encountered. He learned of their interstellar journeys, of wars fought to survive, and of the delicate balance they maintained between expansion and conservation. Yet despite the grandeur, he never lost sight of Lyra, who continued to grow under his guidance, and Ilara's watchful eye. The bond between Ethan and the Lysari expanded beyond formality. He became a bridge between two species, demonstrating that humanity's greatest strength was not weaponry or technology, but empathy, courage, and the willingness to act selflessly. He trained Lysari soldiers in human tactics and philosophy while learning their advanced combat and strategic systems. Each exchange deepened respect and forged mutual understanding. Tensions in the Arvian cluster persisted, but Ethan's influence created a small zone of stability. When new conflicts emerged, he mediated disputes, not as a soldier, but as a symbol of what could be achieved when humanity's values were applied universally. Lyra, now older and more capable, served as the living testament to this connection. Her loyalties split yet harmonized between two worlds. Ilara, ever the queen, watched Ethan closely, noting how his presence reshaped perceptions within her court. Lysari scholars and diplomats began to study human ethics and behavior, realizing that compassion and strategic mercy could be as powerful as the most sophisticated weaponry. In doing so, the foundation for an unprecedented alliance began to form, one that promised hope for generations yet to come. Yet, even with the accolades, Ethan remained grounded. He understood that his actions were ordinary by human standards. Anyone would have acted to save a child, but extraordinary in their consequences. He had crossed boundaries that others feared, and in doing so, he redefined the limits of what it meant to be human in the galaxy. When the time came for Lyra to join her people fully, she hesitated. She looked at Ethan with the same eyes that had first regarded him with fear and wonder. She had grown to love him as a guardian, mentor, and friend. Ilara observed silently, knowing the moment was profound. Ethan knelt and whispered to her, "Be brave. Always remember where your heart feels at home." Lyra nodded, tears reflecting both the glow of her skin and the warmth of her bond with him. When she stepped forward to join Ilara, it was with dignity, courage, and the imprint of humanity etched into her very being. Ethan remained at Firelnine, now a figure of legend, known across human and Lysari territories as the one who protected the enemy's child and, in doing so, changed the course of history. He had proven that humanity's true power was not in domination or conquest, but in the quiet, unwavering acts of courage that inspired others to follow. And somewhere across the stars, the Lysari queen kept her promise. Ethan was no longer merely a soldier. He was family, bound across species by respect, honor, and the unbreakable chain of empathy that had begun with a single act of protection in a canyon on a distant, lonely world.